He continued eating monster cores even as the monsters gathered around him and prepared to attack. Inheritance occurs when consuming a monster core, and there is only a very low chance of gaining that monster's skill. That was Woojin's true secret, the reason he had managed to survive in the demonic realm for 12 years. After some time, he started feeling full after stuffing himself with around 40 monster cores, which should have been more than enough to gain the digging ability. Then suddenly, a hand reached out and grabbed him. One of the soldiers shouted and asked if he was all right. Woojin quickly told him that it was dangerous, reassured him that he was fine, and told everyone to maintain their formation. He said it not out of concern, but because he could not secretly eat monster cores anymore. The soldier ignored him, pulled him out, and assured him that they were safe now because the holy choir had begun their performance. Roland and the other holy knights started playing musical instruments, and their music immediately empowered the soldiers. One of the soldiers shouted that he was overflowing with power, and soon the others were slaughtering the monsters with ease. Woojin was stunned by what he was witnessing. The soldiers' stamina and defense had increased significantly, and he realized they were all receiving buffs from the Holy Knight's songs. But what surprised him even more was that he had never expected Roland to be a support. He had thought he was a swordsman. After that, the soldiers defeated every monster in sight. When night fell, one of the soldiers announced that they would be recording everyone's performance and asked anyone who had taken part in the battle to gather around. He added that the recorded results would directly affect their rewards. Afterward, one of the soldiers muttered that he still could not understand Woojin's actions, from smashing his own head with a rock to charging straight into a horde of monsters and now digging through the dirt. Inside his tent, Woojin could be seen digging into the ground. He clicked his tongue because even after eating all those monster cores, he still had not gained the digging ability. He could only conclude that inheriting skills definitely required luck. At that moment, Roland entered the tent to check on his condition. Woojin apologized if his actions during the fight with the leech rats had startled him. Roland immediately said that it was nothing like that. He had been more impressed than shocked. He admitted that when Woojin jumped into the middle of the horde, he thought he was going to lose his life, but in the end, the results spoke for themselves. Roland had also heard that Woojin had hunted 267 leech rats by himself. The average soldier had only taken down 4 or 5, while even the holy knights had only managed around 100 to 150 at most. In Roland's eyes, that was proof that prodigies were built differently. But Woojin did not see himself as a prodigy. He knew that if he had focused entirely on hunting instead of secretly eating monster cores, that number could have easily tripled. He then asked Roland if he was part of the support force, which caught him completely off guard. Roland's face turned red as he asked what about it and whether Woojin was looking down on supporters. Woojin quickly explained that he had simply thought Roland was someone who preferred raw power, so he had only been surprised because it was not what he expected. Roland laughed and admitted that Woojin had seen right through him. In his heart, he was the kind of man who also wanted to wield a sword. When Woojin asked why he did not simply do that, Roland explained that the reason the Order Alliance fought was for peace. Countless people had lost their homes and were dying because of the demonic realm. In a world like that, he chose the role where he could help the most. He proudly added that while his swordsmanship was only slightly above average, his musical skill was considered top tier even within the Order Alliance. After hearing that, Woojin realized that although Roland had seemed annoying when they first met, constantly talking about prodigies, he was actually a much more decent person than he had expected. Woojin then asked if he could hear him perform again sometime, and Roland happily agreed. 1 week later, inside a large tent, the leaders gathered for a meeting. Roland reported that they had been advancing deeper into the demonic realm while destroying numerous rift cores, kobolds, and large-eared monsters. It was becoming clear that the deeper they went, the stronger the monsters became. He then asked how the soldiers' morale was holding up. One of the unit leaders replied that the soldiers were far more spirited now than when they had first started, which left Roland confused. And then somewhere in the forest, Woojin was cutting down every monster he saw, from kobolds to big-eared monsters. As always, he would take their cores and eat them, hoping to inherit new skills, but even after consuming quite a few, he still had not inherited anything. Back in the meeting, the unit leader continued and reported that the mercenary Woojin had been taking care of every single monster almost as soon as it appeared. Roland could not help but laugh and tease the Order Alliance members, asking if it did not sting to be outdone by a single mercenary. One of them sighed and said that it was not a laughing matter. The soldiers had become far too relaxed, and Woojin was definitely going to claim a huge portion of the performance rewards. But Roland said that a good thing was still a good thing. Thanks to Woojin, they had suffered almost no casualties. And since stronger monsters were beginning to appear, it meant their destination was close, so they should rest while they still could. Deep within the forest, 4 mysterious figures gathered, all looking like dark priests. One of them, wearing a mask, wondered how the Order Alliance had discovered their location. The red-haired woman answered that they had planted so many rift cores around the area that it would have been strange if no one had become suspicious. She added that she believed their youngest had already anticipated this the moment she made her move. Looking towards someone nearby, she said that their chosen youngest sibling could not possibly be that incompetent. A figure wearing a large hat stood before them, then knelt and calmly assured them that there was nothing to worry about. The defenders always had the advantage over the attackers. He smiled and said that the Order Alliance had only reacted slightly earlier than expected, but either way, their actions would not interfere with the great plan of darkness. Back with the expedition team, Roland, Woojin, and the rest of the soldiers suddenly stopped in silence. They had arrived at a massive fissure, its depths covered in thick monster webs. Roland stared into the darkness and said in disbelief, "What kind of madness is this?" Hidden within the darkness, countless monsters waited silently, ready to devour anyone who entered.